Welcome to Season 2 of the SOAR podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs who want to build healthier, happier, more profitable self-employed businesses. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. Get ready to soar. Welcome to today's episode. We have with us Tammy Braswell. So Tammy, please introduce yourself and what you do. Tell us about your business.
Oh, well, thank you for having me here. I'm always excited to share. So I'm Tammy Braswell, the Vibrational Goddess, and I work with women to shift their vibrational alignment with what they want to experience in their life, because we're vibrational beings. And we're sending out a frequency like a radio station that brings back to us what we experience in our life. So when you can consciously tune into the frequency you want to be on, where the life you want to live exists, life is much more fulfilling, more exciting, more fun. And so I help women to do that by healing their past emotional wounds and old patterns and beliefs to really discover who they really are as the divine being that they are, and to design their present and future in the way that feels really good to them.
Yeah. So I feel like you and I live in this very woo-woo kind of world. And so for our listeners who aren't as familiar with these terms as we are, can you explain what does vibration mean? You know, in the context of us going through our day-to-day lives, what is a vibration and how does it impact our experience?
All right. So everything is made up of energy. And I think that's a pretty common statement nowadays. And everything vibrates at a frequency. As a matter of fact, if you're my age, you know, the old television sets had a UHF and a VHF station, very high frequency, ultra high frequency, and it picked up whatever was out there that matched that frequency. Or radio, you know, if you've tuned to 88.7, that's the music or, you know, talking that you'll receive, and you don't get any other station while you're on that station. And then you turn up the dial to 103.7 and you get a different music or station. So a vibrational frequency is what we are sending out through our thoughts and emotions. And then it brings back to us the station we're on and our experiences. And so we can look at our life, and if we like the station we're on, we keep staying on that station. If we don't, then we want to shift that station or turn that dial to go to a higher station that matches up with new experiences. And so you can tell what frequency you're on by how you feel. If you feel heavy, low, you know, sad, depressed, that is a low station. And that's, you're going to get you know, information back in your world that shows you that low station, things usually we don't like to see. And then when you turn up the frequency to things that feel good, feel happy, feel joyful, you feel lighter, and that allows more experiences like that in. Does that make more sense?
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up the science of radio frequencies and television and all of that, because that's how I like to think of it as well. You know, I like to think back to high school chemistry class when we were learning about different states of matter and how the reason why water is still water as ice, liquid, or a gas is because of the speed at which the molecules are moving. At the ice stage, they're not moving. They are still moving, but they're moving very, very small and slow. And then in the water state, they're moving faster and with more space around them. And then in the gas state, they're moving incredibly fast and incredibly far apart, and they're bouncing off of each other. And so that's how I like to explain vibration to people on that kind of like molecular level. But then where I feel like I start to lose people is when I try to explain, and I'm hoping you can help me with this, when I try to explain how your vibration. And people tend to understand this part where we say, like, have you ever felt like someone was staring at you from across a room? Or, you know, you could just walk into a room and feel tension. It just felt tense and icky, or you walk into a room and it feels jovial and happy and light, that is because of the vibration that the people are bringing to that space.
Mhm.
And I think people understand that concept too. But then where I tend to start to lose people is when I try to explain how your vibrational state can impact your life
Mhm.
and how it translates into manifestation and manifesting the things that you want that are farther on your timeline than you'd like them to be, and you bring them in closer
Mhm.
to you. So help me kind of translate that for our listeners.
And I think our conditioning has taught us that the world happens and then we react or respond to what we see out here,
Mhm.
rather than being taught that how we feel and think in here creates what we see out there and how we see it. So even if there's things that we don't necessarily like or want to see, depending on where we are vibrationally and how and our thinking, the higher place that we're in is more expansive. So we view everything from this lighter place, this feel good place. And but there's a lot of heavy energy just in the collective,
Mhm.
which brings us down to viewing things from a place of that doesn't feel good. It feels constricted. It feels heavy. I mean, I like all the ways that you explain it, but if we start to shift into what happens here is what creates out here, or our perception of out here, then it's different than thinking that things are coming at us.
Yeah. It's more of, instead of things coming at us, it's more of we are attracting things, and like attracts like. So if we are able to keep our vibration high, it's going to bring in more high vibration things, experiences, people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the law
Yeah.
of vibration works with the law of attraction, because you attract that which is like you based
Mhm.
on the station, the vibrational frequency that you are on.
Yeah.
So again, if you're on a low frequency and you see things in your life, life is basically feedback of what station we're on.
And so talk more about that with regard to, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, the idea that our past experiences can impact our present vibrational state. What is the connection there, especially for people who look at their past life and they go, "Oh, I'm over that.
Mhm.
I've dealt with it. I'm past it. I just don't ever want to even look at it or think about it anymore." What do you say in those sorts of situations?
Well, it all still stays there. Right? I'm going to talk from the energy point of view. Is that energy has a form, even if we can't see it.
Mm.
So those emotions say that we've had and experiences that maybe we don't want to deal with or look at. They still exist because we haven't done anything with them. So they kind of just sit there until something activates them again or triggers them, that reminds that part of us where they exist that this is happening again. So like in relationships, if you feel rejected or abandoned, if you go back somewhere when you were younger, there was a moment that you felt that way. So your emotional system recognized that abandonment and it held on to it. And anything that happens that's similar, it connects to that original feeling.
Mm.
So if we can go and look at where that started, we can heal it emotionally, energetically,
Mm.
and then that doesn't have to keep happening. It's like a stream of energy that just keeps repeating the same thing till we
Mm.
stop it, because energy doesn't have an opinion. So it doesn't say,
Right.
oh, we think you're done with that, we'll stop now. It just keeps running until we, as this conscious being, or we awaken to our being conscious of things, we can say, okay, I am want to be done with this. Let me process whatever is not finished,
Yeah.
because it's just sitting there unprocessed and incomplete.
Mhm.
And so we want to look at it and go, okay, let's do something with it. And then we can go, if you press up, I think of it like let's say you had a barrel of dirt with water on top of it. If
Mhm.
you leave the dirt alone, the water will rise up and it might be a little dark, but it's just water.
Mhm.
You put that up stick in there and you start going like this, and all that dirt starts to float back up into the water. So the dirt wasn't really gone. It just had settled and wasn't being seen or irritated or brought back up. But the moment you start stirring that, the dirt was still there. It'll all come to the surface. And then what do? You don't have that clear water anymore. It's now all muddy.
Right.
And
And
that just
so,
keeps perpetuating itself.
so where do we begin? Because, and I feel like this is such a timely conversation, especially because we're recording this in February 2022, and my book, Corporate Dropouts, is coming out tomorrow. And I have all the jitters because I share a very personal, scary story, scary for me, story in that book. And it's one of those things where writing that book was a healing process for me. And I can't say that it healed me all the way. I wish it had, but it helped. But it didn't get me all the way. And so for people who have gone through that sort of thing, where they have these traumas in their past, they've done things. Maybe they've worked with a therapist. Maybe that didn't work all the way. Maybe they've tried journaling. They've tried energy work. They've tried whatever they have available to them to overcome these traumas and get that water clear so that it doesn't keep getting stirred up anytime. For me, it's like the gas tank stops pumping at the gas station and it clicks and I jump 3 feet in the air. Little things that happen on a daily basis that just stir up that water again. Where do we even begin to start clearing the water so that there is nothing to get stirred back up?
Well, like you said, it's writing does help. There's different methods of writing. I found I do energy work around it. And because we are energy, we can shift something in the past that will change where we are now. I think having support and assistance with that is important because we're so attached. And then it's a scary thing to look at it. To do it alone, we push it away because we don't want to look at it. And we were not taught to understand how to process emotions that don't feel good to us.
Yeah.
That's why people don't like to deal with other people's emotional stuff because they don't know what to do with their own. If I don't know what to do with my own, what am I going to do with yours? Right. And so even as children, I don't think, our parents, there are some parents out there or some people out there that were raised different, but I think the majority of people, parents didn't know what to do. So they, don't cry, you're okay kind of stuff. And then we grow up and we do the same thing because that's what we know. We know what we know. And so having assistance, because, like for clients can help them go to a place and find that and safely do something with it and process it. And I believe that those things that did traumatically or, wound us or were painful back when we were younger, and they began somewhere. Every layer after that, like I mentioned, is just on top of that. It didn't start here, it started back there. Is that it's not going to be as painful. It's because we're not actually existing in that place, but it is triggered. So it just keeps coming up as repetitious experiences because that's still in there. So if you look at your life and see the patterns, that's what it's around. And when you can do something with that, there is such freedom and relief. And it's like we're walking around with these heavy weights on us. And when you start to take those off, it's like, wow, I didn't even know I could feel like this. The window gets clearer and, it just, you look outside and even on a rainy, cloudy day, you're like, oh, there's a little sparkle of sun out there. I can see it.
Yeah, I think you're so right especially with regard to how we were raised. I mean, I know in my generation, I grew up in the 90s and I was raised by 2 cops. And so anytime I was upset, it was, oh, toughen up, be quiet, toughen up. You've got to be stronger than that. Mm-hmm. And that was a message that just repeated in my head anytime, if I got bad feedback in school or my soccer coach was mad at me or whatever it happened to be as I went through life and grew up and went through all these situations. It was, oh, toughen up. Don't be upset. You shouldn't be upset about this. You should just toughen up. And so for people who feel like, okay, I'm ready to start healing those past messages, those past traumas, those past events, how do they know if they're ready to work with someone like you?
Well, there's an interesting thing about being ready. The word ready.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we're never ready.
Yeah.
We'll have all of these reasons why not to be ready. So it's more about being willing, willing to have a different experience, willing to have something change, because we know when we want something to be different, we know it. We're not happy. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And even like you talking, sharing that, you weren't given a safe space, and it's nothing against your parents. It just, you didn't feel safe to express. So you pushed everything down, and you filled your barrel with a lot of mud.
Yeah.
And you weren't able to release it. I mean, so many people who have a hard time crying, that's just the body's emotional expression. It doesn't have to be, always sad. It's just literally a release. When I do energy work with people, so many will be like, I'm crying. And they're like, is that normal? I don't feel sad. No, your body's just releasing the heaviness that can't be there anymore. When we raise the vibrational frequency, the heavy stuff has to go. It's time to move it.
Yeah.
And that shows you what wants to come up too. So it's being willing to make a change, and then to have someone there to help you, to be that we like that sensation of having that shoulder to cry on, somebody to be there so that we're not alone. We are taught that we're doing this alone. I think about the DIY, do everything yourself. So people are fixing their plumbing. They know nothing about plumbing. They are watching YouTube videos that are poorly made with the camera going everywhere, trying to fix it. And then ultimately they got to call the plumber anyway, who does this for a living, who's been trained, who knows what it is. So it's like, go to someone who already understands this to help you.
Yeah.
And then it makes it easier, and it makes it just takes that heavy off. I can energetically, because of what I do, being intuitive and highly sensitive and tuning into all the energy around me and the people that I'm with, there's such a heaviness, and we're tired of this. We're literally tired and exhausted from this heaviness. And it's time to not walk around with this like huge weight on our chest. And I think most people can feel that their hearts are heavy. And we're meant to be lighter and freer, and that we're starting to do that more. And all this stuff, even collectively in the world, all this turmoil is the purging of that heavy stuff. It's like, look at it. We have to do something. We've perpetuated it way too long. The time is done, and we can live in, heaven on earth, nirvana, a beautiful place, but not if we keep carrying this around. So it's coming to the surface so we can do something with it.
I love that you talk about the willingness. I think that's such a great word to bring up, because, and this is something that I see in so many of the entrepreneurs that I work with and the freelancers that I coach. And we actually talked about this in an earlier episode with Shulamit Berlatov. She's a licensed therapist, and we were talking about how trauma and depression and anxiety are just so much more common in the entrepreneur world. And we often seek out entrepreneurship and freelancing and being our own independent income generators because of the trauma that we've experienced. And when we do that, we've created this sort of world for ourselves where we feel like we've created our own little bubble, we've created our own little nest of safety. And so we get into this comfort zone. And yet we still walk around with the weight, the sadness, the frustration, the anxiety. And it all comes down to that willingness of, would you rather spend your life uncomfortable at, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe your daily discomfort, I'm making up numbers here, is, let's say, a 5. Would you rather go through living your life at that level 5 discomfort for the rest of your life? Or would you prefer to be free of that after going through an experience that might bring your level of discomfort up to an 8, a 9, maybe even a 10, but it's temporary, it's short, and then you're free of it forever?
Mhm.
I mean, that's really that willingness to get out of that comfort zone, process it, give it the attention that it's crying out for in order for you to really live the life that you want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't, yeah, again, we don't know what we don't know. We don't realize some things until we experience the contrast to them of something
Yes.
else. So, even physical pain, I get surprised how many people go around and they've just accepted the physical pain until something comes along that can help them relieve that. And they're like, wow, I didn't even know that it was feeling like that.
Yeah.
And they feel such a relief. And yeah, so and as an entrepreneur, oftentimes, we're by ourselves, and that actually can hinder our success because we go into a little bubble so much
Yeah.
that we don't put ourselves out there, or we're afraid to. I mean, it took me many years of when I started my business to, be willing to invest with coaches or mentors in business, information and help. And then when I started to do that, my business started to grow. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. So what I've come to know is that it's worth investing with someone who already knows how to do this and to help you. Do you have to stay with them for eternity? No. It might just be a short period of time. It might be a while, but they'll help you shorten the space from where you are to where you want to be. Now, or you just keep sitting in that place wondering why nothing changed.
Yeah. And once you get to that place of feeling better, you never want to leave. And you're like, why did I spend so much time in the old way of being? It's like when this is a very mundane example, but it's like when my husband and I started eating a keto diet, and we cut out sugar and we cut out, processed carbs and things that come in a box or a bag. And we just felt so much better. And we couldn't believe the night and day difference between feeling good, feeling clear headed, feeling energetic, sleeping well. And then, but we didn't realize that was possible until we were on that side of it. And then we look back and we're like, wow, I didn't realize how uncomfortable I was before until I realized how much better it could be. And so, for someone who's looking to finally take that step, finally start shedding that weight, clearing the water of all of that murkiness, what is it like to actually work with you? I know you said that you do energy work. What does that look like, especially in our now Zoom everything world where so much is done remotely and you're not in the same space physically as someone?
Well, I love doing everything virtually because energetically we're all connected, and
Mm,
the camera just made it easier. I
yeah.
remember when I was a kid and they said one day we'd have cameras on our phone, and I was like, oh wow, really? And you don't even think about it that we're already living in that. I mean,
Yeah.
a little longer than I predicted it when I was in 8th grade back in the 80s, but
We're living in the Jetsons era. Yeah.
yeah, we are. It's not quite floating, but
Right.
that's probably coming soon. Um, so, well, what I offer is that you tell me about what's going on for you, what's happening right now, and I do like to focus. I've come to know that we don't want to be general, which most of us have been taught to just stay out in this general world. Is to focus in on one area of your life. Our life is one whole thing, but when we focus on one area, we can see more results.
Mm.
And then it radiates out into everything else, because as we change, our whole world changes. And to look at what you share with me, and I feel into your personal energy, that then tells me what we want to focus on in healing, where we need to go in your past, in emotionally, or experiences that we are a starting point to really make some shifts. And so that's what we do. And then it always unfolds perfectly for
Mm.
each person, because that information is already contained within your energy field, the information around you that you take with you everywhere and hold all the past and the present and even into the future.
And a lot of things that we ourselves are not aware of.
Yes.
And we have blind spots to, or we've just become numb to. But someone like you who has that ability and who's been trained in how to pick up on that and use that information for the healing process, that can often be the catalyst to finally letting go of that weight and that trauma that have been holding people back.
Yeah.
And so how did you get into this line of work? And what was it before you decided to go out on your own and be an entrepreneur and run your own business using your natural gifts? What were you doing and how did you know when that tipping point was?
Well, I've been doing this since I was a child.
Really?
Tuned into energy,
Yeah.
spirits, just things that others didn't see have always been normal to me. And makes life exciting. And I just thought that was normal. I knew other people didn't talk about it when I was a kid, so I didn't talk about it, which was a little challenging because I experienced a lot of stuff that I wasn't able to tell anybody because, well, if nobody's talking about it, I probably shouldn't tell them. It wasn't until I was a teenager I actually started talking about it. So this is just a natural extension of my divine purpose of who I came here to be, and it's exciting and wonderful. And but the tipping point was I had always just had jobs that I didn't stay at very long because I would get bored. They weren't, I would be able to do all the stuff they asked of me and do it well, and it was like, okay, now what? I'm not growing. It would just become boring, or I just didn't really like what I was doing. It didn't feel fulfilling. And it was in the early 2000s. I was a single mom, and my son, I had an intuitive nudging that he should not go to camp that summer. And I found that those times, little times, I didn't listen to what my intuition told me or higher guidance it shared with me, that it didn't always turn out the way I wanted it. And I wasn't going to have something happen to my son and then think I should have listened. So I asked the job. I was an administrative assistant. I said, can I take the summer off? And this is the reason why. And they're like, okay. And just so happened that I ended up, things worked out. I started my own high-end home cleaning business. I lived in Naples, Florida at the time. So I was cleaning $1 million homes. Still not the most fulfilling thing, but it let me be with my son. And then I started homeschooling him, and he just kind of came with me on, while I was doing the work I was doing. And then that transformed into, I moved back to my home state of Michigan a few years later, and that transformed into doing a call center from home, which was not fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I started to just get more of the nudging of it's time to do the energy work, the healing, the coaching, the teaching. And I would ask intuitively, well, when can I quit this job? And I like to share this because so many people go, well, I can't just quit and do this. And I'm not telling you just to quit something, you can transition out. But I would ask higher guidance, when can I quit and start doing this? And their answer was, whenever you want to. Well, no, tell me, like, is it okay? And am I going to be covered? And because, we get afraid of that. And I would always get the answer, whenever you want to. Like, my mind was like, we don't like that answer. We need more information. And the thing I understand energetically is having that faith without evidence, belief without evidence, trust without evidence, but knowing that you're backed by something bigger than you that will never let you fail or fall.
Yeah.
And so I picked my own schedule for this call center anyway. And so what I did was I just kind of let it drizzle out, and I started to have more clients showing up. There weren't a lot, and there definitely wasn't the income coming in that replaced what I had. But I knew in my gut that if I was going to live this life of trust, and I was going to do this work that was intuitive and energetic anyway, that I was going to step out. So in the end of 2012, which is, known as a energetic year of shifts, I said, okay. And then from there, it was a little bumpy, and the part of me that was scared, came up, but it's been wonderful ever since. And
Yeah.
these last 2 years have been my best years ever.
Yeah.
They've,
Yeah.
people look at it like they haven't been, but they have actually been on so many levels, my best years ever. And now is the time for all of us to experience something way more amazing than we have been.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because you're not the only person who I've heard have that conversation with higher guidance. In fact, I think Gina Stroll, who was on the show earlier in the season, she shared a similar story. And I've worked with clients and mentoring them in their businesses who have told me, I just keep getting these messages that I can quit my job whenever I want. And so really it's just up to me getting over my own fear and bullshit. And that's ultimately what it is. And every single person I know who has ever taken the leap doesn't regret it. They're so glad that they did it. And they're so glad that they had that experience of getting over their own internal fear. Because on the other side, the fear is gone and there's so much joy and fulfillment there.
But the fear always comes up a little. Even just a couple of days ago, I offered an energetic event, and I had in my mind I am a very powerful conscious manifester. We always are manifesting. It's not like a secret thing that happens occasionally, but consciously doing something and knowing that you're watching it come into your reality is different. And I wanted to have a certain number of people at the event, and I hadn't had that many. And I just kept holding that. And every sign showed me there were only, like on Sunday. So this event was Tuesday, only like 6 people registered. And I was like, okay, well, then that's 6 people I show up for. That's fine. And I even extended the registration period from Monday morning to Tuesday afternoon. I went up to 43 people, and I had wanted 30.
Wow.
And so there was a part of me that was like, you've got this many people, and it was flooding in, and there was a little bit of like, it was unfamiliar at that moment. And I stopped and I said, okay, I want this though. This is what I want. So let's make it familiar. Let's make it natural. And then it felt good. And it was the first time I've had my own event where I've been to a lot of Zoom events where the whole screen is full when I come on. It was the first one that I stepped into that the screen was full, and it was my event. And there again, that part of me was like, oh, wow. And I'm like, no, this is good. This is what it's going to be from now on. Yeah. And so I stepped into it, and noticing that stuff comes up, and noticing how you process it. That's part of that processing of recognizing when something's there. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to be in the fear and run or push it away? Or are you going to really allow in what you want, even though you've never experienced that before?
And so I love that you're sharing this, because you are so experienced with energy and you are so experienced with manifestation. And yet you say that even you still feel the fear sometimes. We have the self-doubt, man, I really want this event to sell out, and yet I only have single-digit registrations. What do you do? Is there a process that you take yourself through, a meditation? Do you journal? What do you do? Sorry, that was my cat hopping off my lap there. What do you do when you do feel that spike of fear to help you get back on track and back in that higher state of vibration?
Well, because of where I am vibrationally, it's easier for me to move through stuff like that. So right at this point, I just think, wait a minute, it's possible. And I refer to this story, if you have time for me to share it, about Wayne Dyer. Do you know who Wayne Dyer is?
I've heard the name, but it's escaping me right now what he does.
He is Wayne Dyer is a huge inspirational teacher. He's written tons of books. He transitioned multiple years ago, but before he did, I got to meet him. And he had an event locally, and I was offered a ticket to attend to help promote a spiritual center I was part of. And I was going to sit in the very back of a 2,400 person venue. And a week before, I decided that someone was going to come up and hand me the front section tickets. Didn't know how, didn't know who. And I was standing in line at the event, and one of the 2 first clients I ever had doing energy work came up to me, and she's like, "Oh, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen her for years." She's like, "Are you in the VIP section?" And I said, "Well, no." And she goes, "Well, would you like to be?" And I said, "Of course." And she handed me those 2 tickets. I went and I picked an aisle seat and sat down. And then I decided that Wayne Dyer was going to come over and shake my hand and take a picture with me.
Oh my God.
And he came in, shook all these other people's hands, went up on stage. And what I call it, the human side. So we have the spiritual soul side and we have the human side. And the human side, there's nothing wrong with it. It's our soul wants to be in the human. That's why it's here, and that's the experience. So the human part of me said, "Well, he's not going to come off that stage now." And I had already told all these people the story about the tickets. I'm like, "Well, he's going to come down." And they're like, "Well, that'll be interesting to see." And this is in moments. So it doesn't have to take a long time to create something consciously that you want. And I'm like, "Oh, he's up on stage. He's not going to come down, is he?" And then I decided, no, he's going to come down. He's going to shake your hand because that's what you want. He turned around. He was up touching books on a table. He turned around. He walked down that stage and he came down the aisle, and I stood up, and it was winter and my hands were cold. And he shook my hand. He went, "Wow, you've got cold fingers." And he'd shaken a ton of other people's hands. So that got his attention. And then I took a picture with him.
Wow.
I have it on my Facebook profile so you can see it. But yeah. And in that moment, I remember that because it was so instantaneous that I wanted that and that it happened. And, it happened with this person who was huge. I mean, if you Google him, he was huge. And actually, after he passed away, some of his friends who are huge said they didn't know how how popular and well known he really was. And I had that, I attracted that. That was the station I was on. I held that station, even when the station wanted to turn back down to a lower one and get on a different frequency, knowing that that was it. So I really bring that to mind all the time, that if I could do that with someone so influential and that so many people look to, that there really isn't anything I can't do.
Yeah. And what do you attribute that to? Is that you sending that vibrational energy out and it hit him when he was on the stage and it attracted him to you?
I just decided I wanted it.
Yeah, that's a big part of it,
He
isn't it?
showed up for what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where can people check you out, Tammy? Where can they learn more about your work and potentially work with you if that's right for them?
Well, I have a website. It's createbyvibration.com. I'm very active on Facebook, and I have a Facebook group called Your Spiritual Journey Playground, Elevate Your Awakening, Healing, and Growth. And that's where I do, talk, and I do energy blasts in there, so you can get a feeling of experiencing what I share. I've had members share that they've gotten their dream job from being on my energy blast, diagnoses that they'd rather have, and just feeling different and viewing life differently from those. So I do those bi-weekly, and they're fun to do. So you can find me there. And those are two of probably the best ways to reach out to me. And I do have a gift to offer.
Oh, wonderful.
Because I love doing energetic exercises and activations, which just open you up to new levels of experiencing life. When people meditate, and it's a form of meditation, but I don't necessarily call it that. I like to be active in the energy work because it moves things more than to just necessarily sit silently.
Yeah.
So it's called Master Your Energy. calm the chaos in your life. And it helps you to become more centered, more focused in your own energy, and to feel in charge of your energy. Part of why we have a challenging time really tuning into ourselves is because we're scattering ourselves everywhere with people and to-do lists and, you know, all these
Your
obligations.
phone pinging every 5 seconds and your email
Yeah.
going off and the email and
But you can
everything.
come to a place where you call
Yeah.
back your energy, so you
Mm.
really feel more centered in yourself and connected with yourself. And then the choices you make in your life are different because you're looking from a different viewpoint out at what you're creating and what you're experiencing. And,
Yeah.
you know, it just helps with that scatteredness, the feeling depleted and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, I great feedback on that too. So I want to offer that as a gift, and you can receive that at createbyvibration.com/master your energy.
Perfect. And we will put the links to all of your places,
Right.
including that great gift, in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Tammy.
Oh, well,
This was
thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Hey, Ray here again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcasting platform. Want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at chironconsulting.us/podcast.